I'm Aaron Sagers, and this is Talking Strange.
No, I get it. You say she is a friend of Tiffany's and a real doll, but what about the whole killing part? Because I'm not... Hey guys, Aaron here, and welcome to Talking Strange. Today we're going to be talking to AAlex Hedlund, the EP of the Chucky series on Syfy. And this episode is brought to you by GFuel and their new Good Guys energy drink, which is blood orange flavor, has zero sugar, is made with plant-based ingredients, has vitamins and antioxidants in it, and helps provide game-changing energy. So, all right, on to the show. Okay, so the whole homicidal thing. How homicidal are we talking? Hello, spooky nerds, and welcome to Talking Strange, a paranormal pop culture show with the Den of Geek network. As always, I'm your host, journalist, author, researcher of weird things, Aaron Sagers. You can also catch me on 28 Days Haunted on Netflix and on Paranormal Caught On Camera on Travel Channel, the Max streaming service, and Discovery Plus. And I'm happy to be bringing in my guest today because we are going to be talking about, well, you know what? It's definitely no child's play when you're talking about Chucky. You are talking about the homicidal, iconic doll who was part of a film franchise, and now the Chucky series is well into its third season on Syfy and the USA Network. My guest is AAlex Hedlund, executive producer of the series, which was created by Don Mancini. So, as we know, the show, we've seen the first 3 episodes of the season 3, part 1, where Chucky has been taken over the White House. And AAlex, I want to find out about the bloody State of the Union. How are you doing today, sir?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's I love this show because we've got just off the wall humor. You've got some big swings with it as far as things that I never thought I'd be seeing in cable TV, network TV. A lot of F-bombs too. How many F-bombs are we up to? Do you know how many F-bombs we're up to at this point in season 3?
Cumulatively, no, but I know that we are allowed up to 10, and then after that we have to censor it. So I guess, by that math, 30. But who's counting, right?
Right.
I think that when you get Chucky in there, it's sort of like you just kind of let him rip.
So did it used to be 8 per episode? Did you get a bump up from 8 to 10 F-bombs per episode, or has it always been 10?
I'll put it this way. The studio and the network are fantastic. They're amazing partners. And I feel like that there was a case last year where we maybe needed to go to 11 for something really, really special. And I think that if I remember correctly, they after some conversation, they granted us that wish. So I think we're not trying to revel in it or just sort of swear just to swear, but it is way more fun to be able to speak freely, and especially for Chucky, a little profanity with the mischief goes a long way.
Yeah, I can't imagine having Chucky not drop F-bombs, but it's funny with like TV or with any project, the things you're going to get pushed back on versus the things you actually think you're going to get pushed back on. Was there times where you're like, well, okay, such as season 2, I think it was the finale, when you're taking a chainsaw to a mom's head and splitting it in half. Is that the thing where you're like, oh, they might have problems with that? And they're like, no, that's okay. But could you dial back one of the swear words?
No, it's look, it's a balance, right? And I think that again, the studio and network have been great about the level of violence and the gore and the fact that we have really gotten away with so much. I think the one controversial piece was probably the opening of season 2, where we killed Gary as a young child, and I think that needed a little bit of conversation. There is other examples in the horror canon you can speak to, it or other films or books where it is somewhat common. but again, it's a story point. It wasn't meant to be gratuitous. It wasn't meant to just be shock value for the sake of shock value. When it comes to Barbara's death in the finale last year, she was a great sport. She was so game, and I think it's one of the most iconic deaths in the series thus far. And it was really just about how we can pull that off. The second that Don pitched it, I just thought it was genius, and I wanted to sort of figure out how we can sort of make that happen, where Chucky would literally sort of ride the chainsaw down, kind of bisecting her body. I still love it. I love seeing the flashback in 301 a couple weeks back. Just that moment is just so bloody and awesome.
Well, before we get to season 3, episode 3, leading into the end of part 1 of the season, I want to go back a little bit. What was the overall mission going into season 3?
When we finished season 2 and Don started talking about what the sort of next iteration might look like, he very nascently teased the idea of going to the White House. And I think we were all intrigued, but had a lot of questions. And obviously, politics is a very touchy subject. There's a lot of different opinions. And very quickly, Don wanted to sort of dispel anything that would sort of be seen as political commentary or anything that was sort of a comment or a criticism of public figures or office in any kind of direct manner. And the idea of sort of looking at the White House as a haunted house, right? It's the Overlook Hotel. It's a creepy old house. There's a lot of history there. There's a lot of secrets that are buried, a lot of things that have never sort of come to the surface. And Don, to my surprise, was so versed in all of this sort of like ghost stories within the White House. And so the idea of the book that Henry's reading, Ghosts at 1600, just sort of pulling out all these interesting ideas that were just wonderful kind of underpinnings for how to make this very creepy chamber piece. And I think very quickly, once you sort of put aside that this isn't trying to be the West Wing or make a bigger comment on where we are politically, but it's just like it's kind of a perfect setting because it is so seemingly impenetrable. So the idea that, one, you sort of have to ask the question, as I'm sure everybody did when they first, sort of glimpsed that opening of like, well, how did Chucky get into the White House? But what's even scarier is that once you're inside, seemingly a lot harder to get out as well. So the fact that Chucky sort of has the, kind of place to himself and can run around and kind of further his dark agenda there in the halls of power, it's just, it sort of supercharges like kind of the kind of haunted house trope, so to speak.
Yeah, I have to commend your team, because the other part of my job is talking about ghosts, and I do that quite a bit. And the 301, when he is reading the book, The Ghost of 1600, he actually got the ghost stories pretty much accurate. I was happily surprised that you were actually quoting some good ghost stories in the top of the season.
Yeah, I mean, again, that stems from Don and the writers really leaning into the authenticity. And there's obviously enough sort of fiction to be had with the Chucky storyline and the first family, but really trying to create a foundation where you would actually believe the sort of interpersonal drama. And as a young boy who is sort of dealing with his own trauma, and just fascinated by the occult or the supernatural, we wanted to really make sure that we could kind of pepper in some of those ideas and those stories, and hopefully if people are excited about it, then they'll go Google and kind of go down a rabbit hole of what else is out there. But I think we didn't we didn't want to sort of fictionalize what was there, and not enough people talk about that. And I think it's just Vanguard to sort of see a kind of a horror story with the White House as the backdrop. So it's a unique opportunity, and I think you have to sort of lean into it and not sort of half step it.
Is there, we've seen, especially, I always love the titles of the episodes going back to season 1, but has this been more of a horror genre homage or Valentine this season? It seems like to me, it seems like we're seeing a lot more of that woven into the Chucky verse.
Mm-hmm. I think it's seamless. I think that there are certain things that are very intentional that Don has been inspired by, that he really wants to make sure that homage comes through. I think there's also a lot of Easter eggs for the diehard fans who are tuning in that want to see those kind of legacy characters or those storylines or those callbacks to the films. But also sort of looking at it from new viewers who may be tuning in, who maybe, haven't caught up on the first 2 seasons yet, now streaming on Peacock. But that idea that you can kind of walk in here and it's a whole new storyline, and, we'll kind of catch you up along the way with the Three Amigos storyline. But, it's very purposeful on Don's part, and just making sure that, to go back to your previous question, is Don, in addition to the White House piece, wanted to make sure that we created the scariest season yet. And I think what's beautiful about the sort of Chucky universe is that there's so many different flavors and so many different tones to play with. And, the sort of the zaniness and the campiness is always going to be inherent in with certain characters or certain storylines, and there's so much fun that, as a break from the tension. But with the kind of haunted house setting, I think Don really wanted to lean into the idea that if this is more The Shining as an approach, like, let's really make sure that some of those scares are coming through more and more. And he's done a great job. The back half is even scarier and darker. And I'm really excited for us to be able to finish those and for the world to see them.
Yeah, and it's worth noting, I mean, obviously production had to halt because of the WGA and then the SAG-AFTRA strike. And how much were you able to complete before you had to halt production?
It was sort of an even split. We finished the first 4 episodes. We were in the middle of shooting 5 and 6. So we have a couple weeks left, and then we'll be able to hopefully release sometime early 2024. But we sort of anticipated that this with the strike schedule, that this could happen, and so we really made great strides to ensure we would at least have half the season that could drop in October, because it's such a perennial series, and we didn't want to let the fans down. And I really want to credit Don and the writers for working and slaving away on an expedited timeline, because we were in a bit of a pressure cooker trying to get all the scripts in place before the potential May 2nd deadline.
Yeah.
And so the fact that they, worked together and then pulled the scripts, and they're amazing at what they do, just as a baseline. But the fact that they were able to deliver the quality of the episodes and the just the character work and again, the amount of research this season, just because it's not just a house down the street. There are certain protocols and just understandings, and so there was quite a bit of homework that the writers had to do to make sure that the authenticity of how the Secret Service or the First Family and how they are protected, or just the daily protocols. So I know that was definitely an additional bit of legwork for them. So my hat's completely off to the writers that they were able to get us everything that we needed. So the scripts are done. It's just, we just need the world to go back together, and hopefully there's resolution soon. We'll be back at it.
Yeah, we definitely want everybody to be able to get back to work. You know what they say, you just can't keep a good guy down, especially when that good guy is Chucky. And GFuel, the #1 energy drink of gaming, anime, and pop culture, celebrates the blood-spattered legacy of Chucky with an all-new energy drink, GFuel Good Guys. Keep coming back again and again and again, just like that homicidal doll that we all know and love. And do it with this delicious blood orange flavor, which is packed with 140 milligrams of caffeine per serving. It's going to give you the vitamins, antioxidants, game-changing energy, and killer focus. That's right, I just made that pun. That you need to be a friend till the end. With 0 sugar, 0 jitters, and 0 crash. Stay on the move and pick up GFuel Good Guys in ready-to-drink 16-ounce cans at Spencer's and FYE stores. You can also find GFuel Good Guys in a 40-serving tub and limited edition collector's box, which also includes a really cool exclusive Chucky stainless steel shaker cup. You can find that right now at gfuel.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code GEEK20 at checkout. Okay, let's get back to the show. As there been in these first 3 episodes of season 3, what would you consider your biggest sort of swing has been that you're really proud of that paid off?
Well, there are a lot of big swings. I mean, I think just the concept and people embracing it, I think is fantastic. I think also Keenan's death as the cab driver this past week was just an amazing confluence of events and schedules that needed to happen. Keenan was a fan and, heard through the grapevine, and he and Don Mancini became friendly. And so trying to figure out how we could somehow work him into the show, sort of landed with this idea of this gruesome cab driver death with the umbrella. And Keenan was down for anything, and he was so lovely on set. The crew loved him. He was throwing out one-liners and ad-libbing things, and he was giving us a bunch of different takes. Hopefully we'll release some kind of compilation of those just behind the scenes, because just that day on set, everybody was just rolling. It was so much fun. And I think when you've got somebody who is so fearless and excited about that process, it was just it was like one of the best days on set.
So a couple years ago, I think this was about 2017, Universal Home Entertainment enlisted me to do some moderating and hosting things for Cult of Chucky, both in London and then at New York Comic Con. And Don was saying back then, like, he had this concept for this show. He had a concept to make Chucky kind of continue to exist, and then having this cadre of this stable of actors that could return in different roles, things like that. And creatively, I really am so impressed with the work that Don has done with this franchise and being able to truly be involved with this thing that continues to live. But from your perspective, what is it about Chucky as this IP, as this franchise, that has managed to really succeed in this this story machine, where you can have these meta plot lines, you can have these actors coming back in different roles, you can have these guest stars stepping in comedic roles, but also getting great gruesome deaths. Why does Chucky lend itself to that?
It's a great question. And I mean, one, I grew up a fan, watching, the first 3 films, especially Child's Play 2, was sort of a gateway horror movie for me. And I think that there's certainly a nostalgia there for my generation. And I think that other generations are then, sort of seeing it because we were kind of passing that down. I think that I think the way that the alchemy of Don's creation and continued reimagination of the character, and then couldn't be done also without Brad Dourif bringing Chucky to life, and that performance every single time. There's something so unique and special about that. And I think that the personality of Chucky as a slasher icon, I think, is one of the reasons that he's been able to endure. Whereas others are equally as terrifying, but they may not have the same level of personality or the one-liners that sort of give him a little bit of that kind of wry sensibility. And I think that has also been able to allow Don and the writers to sort of touch on certain certain themes, make a certain comment, right, that may not land in the same way if it was a normal normal character. And I think that just the way that it can't just be formulaic. Right? I mean, even if you just look at the last 3 seasons between Don first pitching the very first season as 8th grade meets Big Little Lies, and that kind of coming of age story and the thematic of bullying really kind of set the tone, versus season 2, where it was more kind of drenched in this kind of gothic horror, and it was like The Omen. I think that there's so many areas to play and make comments on, and also really be supportive of other voices and be inclusive in the way that again, I can't think of another sort of icon off the top of my head that has sort of had this level of relevancy, but also been a point of pride as like kind of a gay icon, and that community. And I think that there's so many different entry points, not only generationally, but again, 35 years, there's so many different stories and subplots and offerings. So there's really something for everybody. And I think that this sort of genre prism that Chucky occupies enables some of that subtext to kind of get hidden within. So again, if you're just looking for a good scare and some fun horror, we're certainly hoping to deliver on that. But ideally, with the character work and some of the themes of the this season, especially just sort of talking about the family dynamics, and the love story between Jake and Devin, I think, again, hopefully people are surprised by how layered and hopefully people sort of are surprised by that level of detail.
Oh, I think so. I mean, I think, and again, I don't know what's happening in the second half of this season, but just the evolution. I think just the evolution of Chucky as a character and of the franchise, along with the evolution of these characters within these 3 seasons, and the evolution of the relationship right there in the forefront, and how it's representative or speaking to the LGBTQ community, it's something really to be quite proud of. And it is great seeing people respond to it, and especially younger people respond to this. That has to be quite the proud achievement for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely proud that for Don, where it's an incredibly personal story, and so much of his childhood and his upbringing are sort of finding ways to inform the characters and the scripts, and I'm so grateful to be working with with and for Don, as a partner of somebody who is just fearless and really looking for ways to underscore just certain personal aspects of things that we all go through. And obviously a supernaturally possessed doll kind of helps you kind of hide the medicine a little bit, but yeah, it's definitely something that we're all proud of. And I think we want to just make sure that we're not in talking about any of the characters, like that nobody's a caricature. Everybody is sort of well defined and feels like there's something universally either accessible or understandable in these characters, so that ideally, if we end up killing them off, that you actually feel something and it doesn't just feel again gratuitous.
Yeah. What's as we wrap up part 1, we're heading into episode 4 of part 1. What can you tease about this big episode?
It's a Halloween party,
Right.
so get your costumes. Again, we're always sort of fond of what Don has in mind for these. It's always kind of a Halloween episode, so to speak. And so the idea that the White House is going to be throwing a Halloween party, and not a spoiler, but our 3 amigos are sort of dressed up, kind of goading Chucky in the good guy outfits, and that was fun to see the actors get into costume and show up on set. And I'll just say that there's going to be a high body count. This is probably going to be the as Chucky says at the end, the bloodiest Halloween yet, and that's a promise.
So single episode so far, highest body count.
Certainly the highest body count in a Halloween episode, but yeah, I would say that this one is pretty good.
And we see Chucky and a phantom mask.
Yes. Yeah, he's a Phantom of the Opera for Halloween.
Why would Chucky be? Why harken back to an early Universal monster?
One, that is definitely an influence, and it's very exciting. It also is, as it will be revealed, there is something that Chucky is hiding. So it is also part of the stealth of his character for this episode. And there's some other backstory that will sort of be apparent as well. But yeah, certainly trying to find a costume that actually Chucky could wear in the production of it all, and something that would sort of look creepy, but that also has the roots in Universal horror, which we all love and are so influenced by. So that was a really exciting moment to also see when that costume was coming together.
Mm-hmm. This what can we look for in this second half? I mean, I know TBD on when it's going to come out, but it seems like part 4, episode 4, actually lends itself to being a midpoint.
Yes, there's a great big cliffhanger, not to sort of tease things out too much, but there is a cliffhanger at the end of episode 4, and we will sort of directly pick that up at the top of episode 5. But it's great. If we had to split up the season, there's probably no better way to hit the pause button at the end of episode 4 and really just keep kind of ramping up the tension, and you'll start to see Chucky's agenda start to come front and center. And there's a lot of it's going to be a lot of bodies in his wake, and it's only going to get sort of more claustrophobic and tense as the episodes wrap up.
I think, I don't know how many body swapping took place last season. It seemed like there was a lot of bouncing around of souls.
Yeah.
But is that something that we can, if you could say, we'll be seeing more of throughout the rest of this part of the season and next?
I'll leave it at this, that there are definitely some unexpected twists and turns, some interesting cameos to be shown, and I feel like it will be not only certainly there will be callbacks to previous iterations in the franchise, but also some new things too. So yeah. I know it's deliciously vague, but I don't want to say too much and give anything away.
I think we could probably safely guess that in the second half we'll be seeing more Fiona and Jennifer Tilly popping up. At least I hope so.
Yes, yeah, we will certainly explore those storylines further.
Can you go bigger than the White House?
That's a great question. What do you think in space?
Chucky in space. I don't think we've actually seen that yet. I guess the question, the subtext of that question is, when you and Don and the writers are approaching this story, are you writing to an end? Are you writing to, okay, this could be it? So write to wrap up this story, and if we get a season 4, great, but blow it out of the water, leave everything on the field.
I think Dawn always approaches things from the perspective of, even though it's a continuing story for many of the characters, almost anthological in the way that these things are designed, so that one setting or kind of big concept for the season gets resolved, and then it can kind of reset for the next one. So we're hopeful that there's a season 4. We would love to do it. I know that Don has been thinking of an idea, and I'm really excited about that. But I don't think it's in the sense of, I mean, not to speak for him, I don't think he ever sort of approaches it thinking like, okay, we have to sort of top what we did last season in terms of the setting or the concept. It more so has to be, what story are we trying to tell? What haven't we seen? I love that Don doesn't want to repeat himself in the sense of, certain characters or storylines. If it feels too reminiscent of something that we did, last season or the first season, he's pretty quick to kind of recalibrate and want to try something else. So I just love the way that it keeps reinventing itself. And again, that's always stemming from Don, just wanting to make sure that the fans are getting something new, and that he's pushing himself and challenging himself, to come up with just different explorations of Chucky. And again, back to the other, previous question, I think that's just what keeps it fresh.
Mm-hmm. How are you about hanging out with dolls at this point?
Oh my God. I mean, my office is, full of things. So I've got my buddy right here. So say hi, Chucky. So yeah, I mean, I have many dolls, and my kids love it too. They have no idea that Chucky is a malevolent spirit whatsoever. But they just think he's a good guy, and so I don't want to change that thought process for a couple of years. But yeah, it's to me, it's just like it's another day at the office, put it that way.
I recall like a couple of years ago for this for Cult of Chucky, they had, I think, a screen use Chucky that was being touted around. And at one point there was a need to supervise it, as in like someone basically has to have the doll in their hotel room each night, to keep track of this thing. And as much as it's like this character that's riffs some great one-liners and whatnot, when you find yourself like in a hotel room with Chucky, it can also be a little bit creepy when you wake up in the middle of the night and you see the thing. Or
sure.
Have you had any of those moments?
I've not, but I don't know. I guess I'm too close to it. But yeah. Although I guess I've never spent the night in a hotel room with Chucky, so I don't know if that's an opportunity I would necessarily run to. I would certainly defer to the puppeteers and their group to sort of take care of the doll. But I'm sure that if I woke up in the middle of the night and I had Chucky sort of on the adjacent chair or nightstand, I'd probably freak out.
Or in the place where you did not set him.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, what freaks you out then? Look, it's spooky season. We're talking about, the things that go bump in the night. Is there anything that creeps you out?
Not at this point, not really. I mean, weirdly, I'm always sort of in search of, especially, for film and TV, looking for what are those primal fears? What are those everyday anxieties? I feel like I'm always sort of looking for stories that harness the horror within everyday humanity, or the humanity within everyday horror, and that reflexivity. So I know that's a very elliptical answer. I wish I could just be like, snakes. Like, yeah, I'm sure that, a giant spider is not necessarily, my jam either. But there's not like I don't have like one set fear. Weirdly, I'm always sort of like looking, I sort of would love to seek them out rather than be repelled by them. So again, it's like, I'm always on the lookout for like a great book or a new movie that, taps into that.
Did you ever have, were there any urban legends, very local urban legends, where you grew up, like the creepy old house at the end of the block, or, the bridge with like, Crybaby Bridge or whatever it might have been?
I don't think I ever had something that specific. There was always just the general ghost stories that were going around, or, I think there was always like that one house that was around the corner that was just a little, that stuck out like a sore thumb, where it was like a little bit run down and the lawn hadn't been mowed for a while, and it just like, it was a little overgrown. So I think as a kid, there was certainly, something sort of weirdly seductive about that, because you kind of want to fill in the gaps of who lives there and why is this house here. I didn't have anything too specific though.
All right. Well, my guest is AAlex Hedlund, executive producer of the Chucky series on Syfy and USA, and season 3 part 1 is concluding next week. That's on I forget the date now. That's October 24th, I believe, right? Or
let's see, Wednesday the 25th.
Wednesday 25th, yes.
On USA Syfy, and the next day on Peacock.
That's right, and the next day on Peacock. And AAlex, thanks so much for your time, sir. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to a killer mid-season finale. So thanks, that is it for me this episode. I'm Aaron Sagers. This has been Talking Strange. Until next time, be kind, stay spooky, and keep it weird. Okay, spooky nerds, we are back for another edition of the segment that I call Creepy Collectibles and Curios. Creepy Collectibles and Curios. All right, still workshopping that jingle. We will get there. But after speaking with AAlex Hedlund, the executive producer of the Chucky series on Syfy and the USA Network, I was thinking to myself, I say, I need a friend to the end. I need a good guy in my life. And I took to the internet and I was searching for good guys. And then I realized I should probably narrow my search. So I went to eBay and I was looking for some good guy dolls. And sure enough, I found one by the Trick or Treat Studios officially licensed Chucky doll. Now, this is modeled after the Chucky doll from Child's Play 2, and this is an incredibly sweet collectible. There is numbered editions on each of these boxes, and so it is a 1-to-1 scale Child's Play 2 Chucky doll. And according to some of the reading I've done about this specific collectible, this is the most screen accurate Child's Play product ever produced. Every detail is made from the actual screen used molds, including even down to the clothing, which was replicated using screen used swatches. So we're talking about a lot of details here, even down to the good guy shoes, the sneakers. At the bottom, there is the imprint, the good guy imprint, and like a fireman's hat and axe and everything. Very much like what we saw in the movies. Now, this is made with a soft, flexible foam that allows you to pose Chucky in any way you'd like. Also, the box itself is so incredible. It is made from the actual screen-used box art within the movie, the Good Guys box. So this is an incredible piece, and I'm really stoked about it because I think this would belong right at home. I have actually a couple creepy dolls in my own collection, some said to be haunted. So maybe Chucky should come home with me. If so, if I get this off of eBay, this model comes in at $499.99. So good guy, friend of the end, Chucky from Child's Play 2. You can find it on eBay. And this has been Creepy Collectibles and Curios. Creepy Collectibles and Curios. Okay, still not that good.